Kris Carr, and welcome back to Chat and Chew. Today I have an amazing guest. My friend Heather White is here. Heather is the Executive Director of Environmental Working Group, also known as EWG. It's an organization that I am so fond of and I use all the time in my research and in my own personal life. So this is so exciting. Thanks, Heather, for being here.
Thank you, Kris. We're really thrilled to be here.
So for people who don't know about EWG, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your mission and what you do.
Sure. What we do is use the power of information to protect public health and the environment. We really want to be able to give consumers the tools they need to live a healthier, greener life. And then through that, use that as an educational tool to really bring them into a spirit of action and engagement to create policies that really are more sustainable. And we focus on toxic chemicals and their impact on your health. We also look at water and energy and food and agriculture. Those are kind of the main buckets that we work in. And we're really known for our databases when I talked about the news you can use and the tools that we provide. So one of our great databases is Skin Deep, which is available on our website, ewg.org. And it's a great tool to provide people information about the personal care products they're putting on their body.
I love Skin Deep and I use it often because when I'm going to stores, I'm always looking for products. I'm looking for products to talk about, but also to use in my own life. And prior to my awakening, being diagnosed with cancer and being very concerned about the chemicals that I surround myself with, but also the chemicals that I consume, whether I know it or not, and also what I put on my skin, I had no clue. Many of them are very toxic.
Yes, it's true, and the ingredients that are in the chemicals are really what we want people to start focusing on. We encourage consumers really to take that next step and become a label reader, and we provide all kinds of great tools in order to make those good decisions. I mean, the average person uses 8 to 12 personal care products a day.
That's unbelievable.
And this isn't just targeted to the women. And we did our own research, and we found that men even use personal care products. They use deodorant and toothpaste.
Thankfully,
yeah,
that's important.
Absolutely. But yeah, a lot of the chemicals that are in these products that aren't necessarily, we're not saying the product itself is going to cause a certain endpoint, but the chemicals that are used have been associated with respiratory issues, with skin irritation, and linked to cancer. And so that's really where we want to be focusing, is on safe cosmetics. And one of the things that I think people are really surprised about is that the Food and Drug Administration, I think most people think would have our back when it comes to cosmetics. And I think they think that these are really regulated and that they're tested before they go on the market. Right. They may be tested by companies, but they aren't required to be tested under law. And the federal government doesn't require testing for cosmetics before they go onto the market. So that's something that we're really trying to change. So again, we're using Skin Deep to try to educate people to make better choices, less toxic cosmetics that they're putting on their body, and then also pull them into the discussion about the need for safer cosmetics on the market and to really revise the laws to provide more protection for us.
So I want to ask a really silly question perhaps, but why doesn't the government feel that it's important for them to understand these products or test these products or approve these products?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. So when the law was passed, the Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act, there's a page and a half that was designated towards cosmetics. And when you think about FDA and you think about their responsibilities, food and drugs are pretty big. So part of it is that cosmetics has been kind of relegated to a back burner issue.
Gotcha.
I think also because it's something that really has affected women. So I think there's kind of an interesting dynamic in play there, as it not necessarily being at that level. So what we've really seen over the last 7 years or so is a much more awakening about this $5 billion industry and what is it that we're putting on our bodies. And some of the research that we've done has been pretty troubling. We really looked at teen girls. I mentioned earlier that the average person uses 8 to 10 personal care products a day. But teen girls especially use 15 to 20, according to our analysis.
I remember when I was a teen girl.
Yeah, I mean, just the hair, I was using hairspray, lots of mascara,
Face wash, body wash, all these different washes.
Everything with fragrance, really, scents, all kinds of scents going out the door. And when we did a test of the body burden that a group of girls ages 13 to 17 had in their bodies, we found up to 16 chemicals that were directly associated with personal care products in their bodies, like parabens. We also found synthetic musks and fragrances and other chemicals that lead to a variety of concerns, including hormone disruption, which if you think about puberty and that important time, it can really cause a lot of concern with respect to how your hormonal system is affected by exposures to different chemicals.
And I'm sure there's just so much we still don't even know.
And that's such a good point, Kris. And I think a lot of people in the industry will say, why are you so focused on cosmetics? These are such low doses of chemicals that you're being exposed to. But the fact is, we don't really know what these small doses of these different chemicals over time do to our bodies, and there is a big unknown. And what we do know is really troubling. We've done a series of body burden tests, and the body burden is really just the toxic chemicals you have in your blood or in your fatty tissues. And when we did some of our studies, we found up to 300 industrial chemicals, including PCBs and DDT. And so polychlorinated biphenyls and DDT were banned 30 years ago, but we're still finding them in people. And not only are we finding them in people, we're finding them in newborn babies.
Wow.
So, generations later, after these substances have been banned and no longer are allowed in commerce, we're still finding them. And what does that mean over the long run? We just don't know. So this big unknown, I think, is a really important question. And our principle is one what we call the kind of precautionary principle: better safe than sorry. Like, try to make greener, healthier, less toxic choices, and really put yourself on the path to wellness with the little steps that you can make.
Absolutely. And we can make choices every single day. And we were also talking earlier that we don't have to be perfect. Sometimes we can't find what we need, and sometimes we're in a pinch and we have to use something else. But for me, it's always about consistency over the long haul. And that's not something that I ever did prior to being diagnosed with cancer. And I remember a time when, I said, why me? And then I went, well, why not me? Cancer rates are increasing, certain other chronic diseases are increasing. Why not me? What is it? 1 in 3 women will be diagnosed in their lifetime, 1 in 2 men. And that's just cancer,
Right.
And one of the things that I know to be true, and you all have heard me say this probably, is I believe that prevention is the only lasting cure.
Right.
Okay. And not just prevention from cancer, but prevention from that which ails us is what I like to say. Right. And I know that when I started to research epigenetics, the science that teaches our genes are not necessarily our destiny. Things can happen in our life that basically bump those genes in a new direction. And I know that food matters. I know that chemicals matter. I know that cosmetics matter. And all of these things sort of play a role in this big stew, shall we say. And how clean is the stew? How pristine is the environment around you, but also within you? And that's what we're talking about when we talk about body burden. And it's not to freak people out, because, a lot of times we can talk about the environment or we can talk about chemicals and people get really depressed and they feel very powerless. And what I know to be true is the more we know, the more power we have, because we can vote with our dollar at that grocery store, at the drugstore. Every single day we can choose a different type of product. And what you all are doing with your databases is just so important, because finally, at last, there's a place where we can go that we can trust. Let's talk a little bit about cleaning products. You have this wonderful DIY, do-it-yourself guide to cleaning products. What are we facing in our homes?
That is such a great question. This is really one that we've been asked by our supporters to take a look at cleaners. I don't think people are surprised that there's toxic chemicals in cleaners. I mean, that's not groundbreaking. But one of the things that we found in our analysis is that we don't know what we're bringing into our home. So our database looks not only at the chemicals that we know of that are listed, but it also looks at what our company's telling us that they're using in their product. So we've really, as our first step, disclosure. Telling us what's in your product is the first step for us to be able to assess safety. And we found that the vast majority of cleaners use really generic terms like surfactant, but they don't tell you what is that surfactant. And we've actually found cases where we haven't convinced companies to disclose more, and when they did, we realized that there were formaldehyde releasing agents and preservatives in their cleaners.
Wow.
Even though that this was a brand of cleaners that was really marketing towards children and to babies and was saying it's all natural. So there's a big questions as far as what we have. What we do know is that simple ingredients can really make a difference. Think about what our grandmothers may have used baking soda, white vinegar. We're not saying these are a substitute, but we are trying to get people to think more about, one, what are companies telling them that are in the products, and two, making better choices about what chemicals they're bringing into their home. So it's a really important area that we really think is evolving as we see more disclosure into cleaners.
It's fascinating to me because I thought that we were all okay and everything was regulated and whatever I see on TV and whatever the government says to me is absolutely fine. And then when I got sick and woke up and I realized I was kind of on my own, I had to do my own research just to be a better equipped citizen and person who's self-empowered, it really turned the lights on for me.
Absolutely. And we have all kinds of helpful guidance when you're looking at cleaners. One of the main things is really avoid antibacterial cleaners. Triclosan is a real issue. It has been associated with thyroid issues, with liver problems, with liver function. It also ends up in lakes and rivers. And it's ubiquitous. It's not only in antibacterial soaps, you'll find it in mattresses, pillows, towels as an antibacterial agent, and there's just larger concerns about antibacterial resistance by overuse of triclosan. Right. Even the American Medical Association says please try to avoid it. So that's one of the tips we have with respect to cleaners too. Also, if something has a registered pesticide in it, if it's a disinfectant, sometimes you need to use a disinfectant. We totally understand that. But in your routine cleaning, if you can avoid anything that has the disinfectant on it, it will, because often those are pesticides, which are often toxic, and they're registered by EPA with that category of cleaners too.
Well, so if I wanted to find out more and I wanted to use these guides, where would I go?
EWG.org. We have all of our tips in a really handy area for you to look at. We have our databases all lined up there, and just resources for you, whether it be cosmetics, sunscreens, cleaners, tap water, what's in your tap water. It's all there for news you can use. And one of the things too that we really hope people kind of take away from this is that we want people to make better decisions. We want to drive the market to better choices, but we can't shop our way out of these issues.
Okay, so what do we do?
We really need to take action, and one of the big things we need to do is reform the Toxic Substances Control Act. It was passed in 1976. It's the only...
That was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, yeah.
Does it need a little makeover?
Yeah, I was 4 years old when it was passed, and it has not been reauthorized by Congress. So it's the only major federal environmental law that hasn't been looked at by Congress before, and it regulates all of the chemicals in our industrial consumer products. So it is really, really important. About 80,000 chemicals it basically fails to regulate, and it's such a weak law that we couldn't even ban asbestos, which is a known carcinogen. And actually, when I say we, I mean the first George Bush administration, which said we need to ban asbestos under this law. We couldn't do it. We need to make sure that we reform this entire system, so we require testing before these chemicals go on the market. And we don't find out 30 years after they're banned, they're being found in the next generation.
We do need to do that because that's what keeps us from getting sick.
Yeah.
And as we all want to be well and thrive, all of these things do matter for us and for future generations. But I have another question for you before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel so powerless, and that's why I write and I make these videos, because I know that I can mobilize my crew, my crazy sexies, to shop differently and to make different food choices and to, encourage them to just grow and get curious. But when I hear top-down change, I get a little narcoleptic and I feel a little small because I don't know how to tickle the powers that be other than changing how I spend my money.
That is such a great question. I think a lot of people feel that way. What I would say, and this was from my 7th grade civics teacher, democracy is not a spectator sport. You have to participate. And how to participate is the real question I think you're asking, though. Something as simple as an email really can make a difference. Email to your members of Congress or your state representatives about issues that you care about with the environment. If you see an event where they are, ask them the hard questions. Let them know that this is something that's important to you. If there's a piece of legislation like the Safe Chemicals Act, which would reform the Toxic Substances Control Act and really revamp how we look at toxic chemicals and what goes on the market, tell your member of Congress, I expect you to co-sponsor this bill. I want you to support it. And tell your friends and neighbors. Really start telling people how important this is. I mean, there's so many opportunities. There's so, so much need for change, and really one person can make a difference. And sometimes it's hard when you think, I just sent an email, does a member of Congress actually look at that? And it does depend on the member of Congress. But I know when I worked on the Hill, my member of Congress every day got daily printouts of what email was coming in, pro, con, for a particular piece of legislation. And he did listening sessions across the state and really wanted to hear from the constituents. So keep the pressure on. Let people know, your elected representatives, how important these laws are to you and that they need to be reformed.
So as stuff comes up, would you keep me posted
You
so
bet.
I can tell all my friends?
Absolutely.
That would be fantastic. Heather, thank you so much for coming and spending this time with me.
It's such a joy. Thank you, Kris, and for all that you do.
Guys, if you love this interview, and if you have any questions, comments, you have any insights, if you want to share any information that you have, leave a comment below, and we will see you next time.